Hey, I'm Angela with Angie.Knows.Loans, and today I'm going to try a little something different. I know I'll always be giving you guys the tidbits in 60 seconds. I want to dive in a little bit deeper to see if maybe for those that want more information, they can find it. Not only that, I want to share a little bit with you about my life. You know what I mean? I want to be able to tell you about the things that I'm doing, ways that I'm growing, and maybe this will also in turn help you. Maybe you could share information back. We'll just see how it goes. All right, so first we're going to start off with it is a new year, right? We're at the beginning of 2022, and it's the beginning of February. We've already missed January, but the reason why I'm coming to you is because I know that it's very important for a lot of people to purchase a home. And we'll not even leave it just at that, to get debt free, to purchase a car. Like all of us have something that we're working towards. And sometimes, most times, we don't know how to get there. We're just kind of like swinging on our own, like going in there and just be like, all right, let's see if we can hit it. Let's see if we can hit out the park. And we're guessing. So what I always tell people is that when you're trying to reach a goal, it's usually best to have an idea of what steps you're going to take, right? Um, the analogy that I always use when I'm in the home buying process and I'm talking to people about that, I'm like, I feel like it's easier to attain a goal if you know the steps to take versus if you just go into a room and it's dark and you're trying to swing a bat to hit a ball. You can't see anything. Swinging in the dark is not going to get you anywhere. You might get lucky and hit it, but chances are the ball's probably going to hit you. It's probably going to hit you in your face. You know what I mean? So when I think about that, I think about that in regards to, anything, any goals that you're setting, and you're trying to get there. A lot of times it's good to kind of create a pathway. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what that looks like, how you can gather information, because a lot of times you have a specific situation that is different from everyone else. So, with that being said, here we are, and we're going to talk about the home buying process. One of the things that I always tell people is that if you can get to a home buyer event, that's probably your best way to start, to gather facts. If you know absolutely nothing, and you want to just start from ground up, or if you have questions regarding your specific need, come to a home buying event. And that way you can actually talk to somebody afterwards, or maybe even before. If you get there early, you can ask questions during the event relative to your situation. So home buying events, they're great. They don't cost anything. You can just show up, dedicate a few hours on a Saturday or Sunday, depending on where it's at, and gather information. So if you're looking for a home buying event and you're in the DFW Metroplex, so Dallas Fort Worth, we have one on February 19th. You can DM me or message me and I'll provide the details on that. Okay. So that would be my first step, is saying, go to a home buying event, get general information, ask the questions, then schedule a consultation, because a lot of lenders will do a consult with you. They'll talk to you individually about your situation, right? A lot of times, like for me, I love it like when somebody comes and they're like, hey, I'm not going to buy for like a year or 6 months, but I just want to gather information. I will be like, all right, cool, let's get these steps, because now the pressure's off. The pressure is off. You can get what you need to get, and you have time to get towards those goals. So if your credit is not good, you have time to do it. If you want to save, you have time to do it. If you need to pay down some debts, you have time. Time is your best friend. And I feel like a lot of times we rush, right? Because we're like, oh my gosh, my lease is up in 2 months. I need to get into a house because I'm tired of paying this rent. And those situations are fine. But what if you're not ready? If you're not ready, then you're gonna need more time, right? So if you know your lease is up in 6 months, reach out now. Make sure that you're good to go, so that way when it comes close to time, you're ready. I want you to be able to get to your goal of home ownership. So with that, you can gather that information. You can start setting up steps to help you get closer to that. So you're in February, if that was your goal for the year, is to buy a house or to buy a car or anything, same process, right? So, yeah, take those first steps. You know, we're here, I'm here, and I'm willing to help you get there. All right. I know not everybody's situation is the same, but we can get closer to that. So that's going to be my little tidbit for today is, how to gather information, who you need to talk to, so that way you can get to the goal that you're wanting to. All right. So next we are going to talk about the book of the month. So for January, so for background for people that don't know, I'm really bad at like reading books. I like to read them. I like to gather the information from them, but I don't allocate time to sit down and read them. I can pick up a book and it'll take me several months to read it just because I'm like, all right, I have some time. I'll read it right now. I don't like allocate time for it, right? So this year I was like, one of my goals, I was like, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to read books and I'm going to give myself 1 month to get through it. I know some of y'all are like, I can read that in a week, 2 weeks. That's great. I cannot. My attention span won't allow for it. So the book that I actually read is called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And my friend, she actually recommended that book, and I found it interesting. It was a little challenging to my thought process, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm a natural glass half full girl. I'm looking at the positives, the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? I am going into a situation with a positive outlook, and this is setting you to where you're a more realistic outlook. And I'm like, what? Wait. So I'm going to break it down for you, tell you some of the things that I thought about as I was reading it. It was a great read. It definitely helps if you're one of those people that tends to care a little bit more than you should, tends to put more emphasis on things that shouldn't even matter. So that's me. I definitely do that. There's probably consideration for people that I give that I really shouldn't. You know what I mean? Or situations where I might like dwell on and I'm like, but it's beyond my control, right? So this book was great for that. One of the things I found really interesting is how they talked about like your self-evaluation. We do read a lot of books. We read a lot of blogs and, things that tell us, like focus on the great things about yourself. What makes you happy? Like focus on the good things. Don't think about the bad things. But the way that they presented it was like, you got to look at the bad things. An entitled person thinks that there's nothing wrong. If you're always looking at the good things, you're never going to see the flaws. And I found that interesting because I was like, yeah, but. Well, here's where I differ, is because I do look at a positive outlook. I do look at the good things. I look at the great things about myself. But I also look at the areas that I can improve upon. So I feel like there's like a balance, right? Because they're like, just focus on what you can improve on, and move on. But then I feel like that would be like a negative outlook. Like if I'm always looking at my imperfections and looking to improve those, then I don't know if that would work for me. So I look at how great I am. I'm like, man, you're great. Curls popping, right? You know what I mean? Smile is great. Like I think about all the great things, and then I think about, man, but you could tone up a little bit, and I think that helps me keep balance because I know that I'm great, but I also know I'm not perfect. I know that I have areas that I can improve upon, and I'm just using physical as an example, but mentally, everything, mentally as well, right? Emotionally, I think when you talk about relationships, that sort of thing, like you're looking at what's going great, but also aware enough to know that it's not perfect and what you can improve upon. And maybe I misunderstood that in the book, but that was my only thing was kind of like, but you should think about the positive stuff because I feel like I know people that only think about the negative stuff, and it really weighs on them. They can't even see the good things. So I feel like there definitely has to be a balance in that. So another part, they talked about failure. And I'm going to relate this back to the home buying process. A lot of people are afraid to start the home buying process because they're afraid that they're not going to be approved. They're afraid that they're not going to get pre-approved to purchase a home. They're afraid that their credit's not going to be great, that they can't afford the house. And I like this one part because they were like, you're failing forward. And what they essentially were saying is that, anybody who has failed is not afraid of failing anymore because they've already done it. So now they can only just think of like ways to improve upon that. And I'm like, that's a kind of a great perspective, take the fear out of failing. Just like, look, you might fall, think about, kids, right? When they're riding a bike, when they're learning, like my nephew, learning to hoverboard, he fell a gazillion times, he even knocked out his teeth, right? But he always got back up. He always wanted to do it because he was like, I want to do this. I want to ride this hoverboard, and I don't care how many times I fall, I'm going to do this thing. And I feel like as we get older, we tend to want to alleviate, or I guess guard ourselves from the pain, guard ourselves from disappointment. And so we're afraid to take that step. You think about relationships. We're afraid to make ourselves vulnerable because we've been hurt before. We start guarding ourselves, and then we never really get to truly live. We never really get to truly move forward because we're afraid of failure. So I did really like that part in the book as well. So, all right. Okay, and I'm not going to give away all the aspects of the book, but there was one other piece that I liked. They were talking about Russian culture and how it's a very honest culture, like to the point where you're on a date and you're like, oh, your breath stinks. Like right off top, right? Like you're like, oh, that's a stupid thought. Why would you think that? And I respect that. Like, as I feel like that's so refreshing, right? Like, I mean, yeah, it might like sting a little bit, but at the same time, it's like you're getting what you're getting. It's black and white. There is no gray area. You don't have to worry about the facade of somebody covering up anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's just this. Hey, this is me. This is how I feel. You either like it or love it. And I'm like, that's dope. So I really, really like that. And they were talking about like commitment and how in commitment there's freedom. And I was like, what? That doesn't even sound right. But there's freedom from other choices. There's freedom from distractions because you've committed to this one thing. So now you really have to focus on is helping that thing grow, or really appreciating that thing. You don't have to figure out like, well, is this other thing great over here? Is this other thing great over here? How can I grow? And I thought that was an interesting take. I thought that was an interesting take. So overall, I really thought the book was good. It definitely was challenging in some regard to how I typically think, but there were great takeaways from it. So if that is something that you feel like you might struggle with, it's definitely a book to read. Let me know what you think. You know what I mean? And the book I want to do next is going to be this book called You Are a Badass. And they're not all going to have curse words in the title. They're not all going to have curse words in the title. But You Are a Badass is another recommendation from a friend. And so this is going to be the book for February. If you want to read it with me, I really would appreciate it. I actually had, a few people kind of checking in on me and just being like, hey, how's the process going? You're liking the book? Because I need that. I need that accountability. I need that person to help out, because I tell you what, I probably made myself read the last 2 weeks because I was behind. No, maybe even the last week, I feel like I was reading like a chapter a day. So this time I'm going to try to space it out a little bit more. But having those people, kind of remind me like, hey, really helps. So if you want to join me in that, I would appreciate it. Maybe we can all do like a meetup in the DFW area and kind of discuss it. All right. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with a thought, just something to kind of get you on your day or your week or your month or however it is. You're special. You are. And I know that you probably look at yourself sometime and you're like, I could do better. And I think that book would really help you in that thought process, because yes, we can do better. That is a great way to think about it, right? But I also think that sometimes we put stress on ourselves because of what society wants, what society needs, I feel like God made us into perfect imperfections. None of us are perfect. None of us have it together. None of us have it figured out. Social media can also play a huge part in making us feel inadequate because, you know, we see what our neighbors are doing, we see what our friends are doing, and we're like, man, I'm not there yet. Or, oh, they look so happy. And, you know, you can show what you want to show. So, what I want to tell you is that you're not behind, you're at your own pace. You know, you might have some things to work on, and that's okay. You have time. You know, take your time, do it. It's better late than never. You know what I mean? And stop trying to compare. Comparison will steal that joy. If you start looking at everybody else and what they got and what they're doing and where they're at in their life and how many kids they got and how many marriages they have, like, it's going to drive you crazy. You're great. And if you want to work on yourself to improve yourself, do that. But try to not give a fuck about where society says you should be. So, look at me taking stuff from the book. Anyways, I hope you have a great day. And thanks for sitting with me. Thanks for sitting with me in my rant. And see, this is why I usually keep my videos to 60 seconds because I have a lot to say. I always tell people, it's like, you know, if I'm in a conversation with somebody, if I'm dating someone, you know, and I run out of something to say, that's pretty bad because I have a lot to say. I mean, you could just say the sky is blue and I'm like, you know what? I love the color blue, but you know, I really love turquoise. As you can see, I got a turquoise beanbag. I really love turquoise, you know, and I'm just going to go off on that. See, look, I probably was supposed to end the video a few seconds ago. But, you know, I think it's a good book. So check it out. If you have any questions regarding the home buying process, let me know. I'm your girl. I'll help you out. I'll help you get pre-approved to get on that road. Help you set up a plan. You know what I mean? So I think that's it. All right. I hope you enjoyed your time, and I'll see you next time. Bye.